What a night of basketball we have in store as we welcome you to hour number 3, live right here on the early line on this Tuesday on SportsGrid. He is Joe. I am Ben. The NBA's in-season tournament, the second annual, begins tonight on this Tuesday and for the next few weeks into early December before we reach the knockout quarterfinal, semifinal, and championship rounds. We will break down everything you need to know about the second ever in-season tournament in the chase for the cup, that being the NBA Cup, in just a few moments. We'll also preview all 6 games that we have in NBA in-season tournament action tonight. Group play begins, what those groups are, how they are defined. Of course, all of that information as we learn in real time for a second straight year once again. Big night in college basketball as well. Jon Rothstein joins the show later on in this third hour. But, Joe, before we hear from the people, just some breaking news to confirm from Dallas. Jerry Jones saying on 105.3 The Fan there in Dallas, Texas, that Dak Prescott will undergo surgery in New York tomorrow on the partial avulsion of his hamstring, meaning the muscle, the tendon, has been torn off from the bone, thus its significance. And this is the quote: "His prognosis is wonderful. It just means that we're not going to have him for the rest of the year." So Dak Prescott undergoing season-ending surgery for that hamstring injury as we expected, Joe. I guess he got to New York to seek the second opinion, and they're like, yeah, we need to put you under the knife. Your season is done.
Oh, why stop in a second? I mean, when the hamstring tears off the bone, go get a third opinion just for the heck of it and see. What are you talking about? Of course he's done for the year, but so is Dallas. They're also done for the year. So we'll see you next year, Dak. Enjoy the offseason.
Yeah. I wonder, Joe, because the odds makers at FanDuel have been so hesitant since the injury news to Dak at the end of last Sunday for the Dallas Cowboys against the Falcons to post any sort of win total or playoff price, just the updated futures market of NFC East, NFC Championship, and Super Bowl that is super, super long at this point. If we'll get that number, just to kind of get a sense of how the Cowboys stack up with the other bad teams in the NFL and what it means for Dallas's draft position, all of that stuff that goes into when your season is over and the tank has begun. So Dak Prescott, wonderful prognosis. He's just out for the remainder of this year. All right, Joe, let's hear from the people. The opening night of the second ever NBA in-season tournament. I was corrected by our producer, not just 6 games, although we'll preview 6, 8 games in the NBA in-season tournament tonight to start off the second ever chase for the cup. Are you stoked? Is the public excited? We find out now in Fade the Public. So, Raineri, one of my favorite bits last year was Donnie and myself on the first ever NBA in-season tournament Friday, learning in real time, like live on national television. Probably not the greatest job by the host to show they were underprepared of all of the information that we needed to explain the format, the groups, how it worked in terms of the first ever NBA in-season tournament. But because of that, it almost felt like, along with the public, we were learning on the fly. So I kind of want to keep the same thing going here in year number 2. And is the public even excited for the second annual NBA IST? Fade the Public poll says, nah, not so much. Nearly 79% of the public voting on a no. They are not a fan of the NBA's in-season tournament. Joe, should we be fading the public? Should we build that excitement and optimism for the second ever NBA in-season tournament tonight?
Well, it's just in its infancy here. I mean, this is year number 2. So, many of the people probably voting on this on today here, November the 12th, probably don't even know what the heck we're talking about because they just rebranded it as well. So I do believe, though, and keep this in mind, the championship game last year with the Lakers, it was the most watched non-Christmas NBA game during the regular season on any network in over 7 years. So while you may not be interested in it now, when we get to the actual knockouts and when we get to the championship game at the T-Mobile Center, I bet you we take this poll again, Ben, I bet you there's a big difference in the answer to it.
Yeah, absolutely so. And Joe, from that perspective, listen, the Lakers and LeBron weren't overly thrilled with getting the NBA Cup. They tried to ask about the significance in LeBron James's historic 20-plus year career, and he's like, yeah, it was cool, man. I was happy to make the trip out to Las Vegas, right? Not exactly what you need. Kevin Durant, though, and a lot of the players throughout the process of the quarterfinal, the knockout round, and the semifinal round, once you get to Las Vegas, did describe that the atmosphere felt better, right? Some of the games felt like they had a little bit extra juice. We know the jerseys and how the courts look a little bit extravagant and extreme, but it does feel different. With that being said, your results in these NBA Cup games, and to Joe's point, it's been slightly rebranded, the Emirates NBA Cup 2024, the in-season competition. Your results in the Cup games in group play still count toward your regular season record. I believe the only games that do not count to your regular season record, and please, Joe Frizo, if I am forgetting this, please correct me, is once you reach the semifinal and championship round, let's make sure of that, and then you'll figure out some of the rest of the schedule for the teams that did not reach Las Vegas. And by the way, the schedule for that, Saturday, December 14th, semifinal games at T-Mobile Arena on the Strip in Sin City, championship game Tuesday, December 17th, so about 5 weeks or 5 or 6 weeks. Only the championship, even the semifinal counts. Thank you, Joe Frizo, and the guys behind the scenes. Appreciate that. So here's how it works, Joe. Just a reminder. The NBA is split up into 6 groups. You'll play in your group play. That was assigned randomly. Group draw results were based on 2023-24 regular season records for all 30 clubs around the NBA. The Western Conference, 15 teams, divided into 3 groups, A, B, and C. The Eastern Conference, 15 teams, divided into 3 groups, A, B, and C. Each group, of course, made up of 5 teams. Group play begins tonight with 8 games. Group play consists over the next 4 weeks or so of playing everybody else in your group, so 4 group play games. The winner of each group advances to the knockout round. That's based, of course, on overall record. And then you have 2 other wild card teams that make the knockout round as well, based on your overall record, and then some tiebreaker advantages that we learned last year, like point differential. So you might try to run up the score early, even if you're up big. That impacts the spread, the total in NBA Cup group play competition, or you could have head-to-heads and cumulative record of other teams that you have beaten in your group, so on and so forth. Here's the odds component, Joe, for the overall assessment of the NBA Cup. They look rather similar to how the title odds and MVP odds might stack up. The Celtics, though, the short favorites to win the NBA championship, are the favorites to win the NBA Cup at a 4-to-1 price, more than half the number of everybody else involved in the NBA Cup.
Yeah, it's the other problem that we've got with some of these is the injuries that have already started to mount here with some of these teams, and we're talking about some superstars. So that is going to be worth keeping an eye on. But I believe it's Tuesdays and Fridays, Ben, are your cup nights.
Correct.
So on Tuesdays and Fridays over the next month, this is when you look at or turn an NBA game on and you see the floor and you're like, what in the world am I watching? What's going on here? That's a cup night. But ultimately, the one team, ironically enough, that appears to be healthy enough heading into this, maybe to make another run, is your LA Lakers, Ben. Because the Celtics have to play the Cavs in the group. So one of those 2 teams is going to be out.
We will list the groups on the other side of the break, and then we will start to preview the actual games and where group play begins tonight with 8 contests around the in-season competition, the 2024 Emirates NBA Cup.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in
in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was
that's what your
looking down
grandma
and did
does,
not
right?
know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Early Line, and not just the Early Line on SportsGrid, but the NBA Cup for the second ever in-season tournament/competition around the association. Again, group play begins tonight in 8 spots. We've got 8 games on Tuesdays and Fridays. Regular season games have that additional component of being a cup game in group play. Groups are divided as such. 6 groups made up of 5 teams, 3 in the Western Conference, 3 in the Eastern Conference. And we've got some compelling storylines on this opening night of the second ever NBA in-season tournament. And part of the groups will face off tonight. That includes West Group C. Here are the 5 teams in that group: the Nuggets, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, and then 2 teams that face off tonight, Joe Raineri, in a very impactful game for a variety of reasons, not just a cup game, the Golden State Warriors and the Dallas Mavericks. Klay Thompson makes his return to the Bay against his splash family that is the Dubs. 2.5-point spread in favor of Golden State for the NBA Cup opener for both the Dubs and the Mavs in West Group C. Over-under stands at 234. And I do want to remind everybody, Joe, that to get to the knockout round, that quarterfinal round, the 3 winners of each group in each conference advance. So those 6 teams in general, and then 2 wildcard teams make the knockout round as well. As we saw last year, everybody had to learn the tiebreakers, but one of the key tiebreakers in a group of only 5 teams could be point differential. So even if teams are up big, they might be trying to score at the end, or even teams that are trailing, trying to find some late-minute buckets to run up the score and make their point differential look better. 234, that total tonight in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, it may be a good night to buy low on Klay Thompson, who has not exactly been shooting the rock very well. I think he hasn't scored more than 13 points in his last 7 games. He was 2 of 13 from 3-point range in the last 2. But something tells me Klay's got to be ready to roll here tonight in his return to Golden State. And don't forget, Luka has been slowed a little bit here, dealing with a groin injury. So I would say these guys probably going to give Klay an opportunity to do exactly what he needs to do in order to show up and show out. And nobody is going to be more familiar with that gym than he is. So this should be an interesting night for Klay Thompson. I would look maybe to go up and over his PRA here tonight.
Yeah, you see those numbers right there. Klay Thompson in his return. Over in 5 straight for Golden State, by the way. Joe, this is going to count toward your regular season standings, of course. Only the NBA Cup championship in Las Vegas, as we have learned, is the only game that does not count toward your regular season record. So when you look at the regular season records around the NBA right now, there is a fascinating narrative starting to build. How strong the Western Conference might be and how weak the Eastern Conference currently looks. Only 2 teams out east are above 500. The only undefeated team in the NBA, Cleveland. The reigning NBA champs and the NBA Cup favorites, the Boston Celtics at 9-2. Everybody else, 500 or worse. The Mavericks currently, of course, if the season ended today, sounds crazy, 10 games into an 82-game regular season. But the Mavericks at an even 500, 5-5, would be on the outside of the play-in tournament looking in. Golden State off to a great start, 8-2, but only 3 of the 10 games at the Chase Center in San Francisco to begin, both 2-1 straight up and against the spread. Under in 2 of those 3 home games for Golden State. Again, group play begins in West Group C. The other groups in the Western Conference. Let's take you to Group A. In that group, the Clippers, the Kings, the Blazers, and then 2 teams squaring off, or a team in square, and the Rockets also included because I skipped over them. A team in the Rose City hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. It's Portland and Minnesota in NBA Cup action. West Group A. The Timberwolves, 9-point road favorite. Take it on the Blazers. 219 and a hook is the total.
Yeah, and boy, it wasn't a good showing the other night with Billups just ripping his team in Portland about how just absolutely embarrassing they are. And now you've got a Minnesota team here. And really, this whole cup thing, Ben, a lot of this all has to do, of course, with the group stages and what your group is. Because some of these odds, even looking at the board where I've got a 2-8 Milwaukee team at better odds than what the Phoenix Suns are, keep in mind, it's all based upon the group stage. So it really doesn't matter what these teams have done prior to this. It only matters what they do on these Tuesdays and Fridays. And Portland in an interesting spot with an opportunity to give Timberwolves all they can handle tonight. I'm kind of shocked it's only 8.5, Ben. I thought it would be closer to double digits here. But this is a spot I'd be willing to back Portland in a bounce back thing and give a little more effort here to Minnesota, who might just think they can cakewalk through this game.
These 2 teams will play each other tomorrow night, but that's not NBA Cup group play action. That's just a regular season game. Portland has been booked as an underdog, Raineri, in every single game this year. They are 3-8 straight up. They are 5-6 against the number. Minnesota 6-4 this year. But they've actually gone over more often this year than you would expect as one of the best defensive teams a season ago in the NBA. Is that the absence of Karl Anthony Towns? Who knows? But over in 6 of 10 games this year. Maybe we see some points tonight in the Rose City at 218 being that total. The team that has the best record, by the way, in West Group A, it's not the Timberwolves or the Clippers or the Kings. It's the Houston Rockets off to a 7-4 start this season. Now let's get out to Salt Lake, where one of the worst teams in the NBA will host the Phoenix Suns, off to a great start this year, and yet the Suns not covering a ton of numbers at an 8-2 mark. But the Jazz are the worst team in the Western Conference right now, 2-7. Joe, both of these teams in West Group B, as I see it.
Yeah, no Kevin Durant, no Nurkic. Also, looks like he's not going here tonight. And Phoenix coming off of that overtime loss at Sacramento on Sunday. This is not a great spot. And as bad as Utah is, they are finally healthy here and have been off since Saturday. Oh, boy.
Could be that underdog spot. KD was singing the praises of the IST last night. Not even showing up for the cup opener. More next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheeks as I was
that's what
looking
your
down
grandma
and did
does,
not
right?
know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
NBA Cup action continues on the opening night of the 2024 Emirates NBA Cup, formerly known as the in-season tournament, now an in-season competition. We talked about some teams out in the Western Conference. Now time to highlight the groups out in the Eastern Conference. East Group A, Nets, Hornets, Magic, the Sixers, and the Knicks. And what could bring Joel Embiid back to playing basketball? Of course, it's the 2024 NBA Cup. Joel Embiid makes his 2024-25 debut tonight at home for Philadelphia as a 2.5-point underdog hosting the New York Knicks. 212 and a hook is that total. Pretty minimal. Again, Joe, we have talked about it. Only two teams in the Eastern Conference above 500. That does not include the Knicks or the Sixers. New York is 4-5, a game below 500. The 76ers are just 2-7. Will JoJo's return, no Tyrese Maxey, but will JoJo's return lead to a win for Philadelphia tonight?
I don't know, but it feels like that number 215.5 is a little light here too, as well, given the Knicks are averaging about 115 points a game this season. And the Sixers haven't exactly been all that great defensively. And granted, now Joel Embiid is back, but what are we going to get from him, Ben? I mean, let's be realistic. I'd be willing to bet offensively he'll be able to contribute enough and will open up some shots in the perimeter for some other guys. But I mean, all in all, how many minutes are we expecting from Embiid here? I still think the Knicks are going to go bombing away here. I think they're going to offensively continue to do what they do. They are challenged a little bit defensively. I think this can be a wild shootout here tonight. I think it lands in the 220s, not the teens here in this one. The total's too low.
The Knicks over in 4 of their last 6 games. In fact, the Knickerbockers have been booked as the favorite every single game, all 8 since the season opener against the reigning champs inside TD Garden, that being the Celtics. They have split those 8 games, both straight up and against the spread. They have won 4. They have covered in those 4 wins. Of course, as a favorite, if you lose outright, you do not cover. The Philadelphia 76ers just 2-7. Both straight up and against the spread. Only 1 cover as an underdog in any of those 7 losses. Joel Embiid tonight to return his points prop, Joe. 24 It has not been a great start to this season for the Sixers. Might some NBA Cup action light a fire in this Philadelphia team. The reigning NBA champs, the NBA championship short favorites, the NBA Cup championship short favorites. That's the Boston Celtics. Tonight at home against the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks are an abysmal cover team, like really, really bad at covering numbers. And the Celtics are a 15-point home favorite at 224 being the total. This is East Group C that also includes the Wizards, the Cavaliers, as Joe mentioned. The only undefeated team in the NBA is also with the NBA Cup favorites. That could be interesting, in the Bulls round out East Group C in the group of 5.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta games are pretty simple to bet. You never bet Atlanta, but you usually always bet the total in some way, shape, or form. And something like, the Celtics team total over is probably not a bad look here, Ben, given the fact that we know Atlanta ain't going to play any defense. We know this. So I would not, even the team total over and the game total over, not a bad look here instead of having to lay the 15.
The Hawks over in 9 of 11 games. Atlanta is 4-7, and they are 3-8 against the spread. They've been favored in a lot of their wins, or at least in a lot of their games, and they just lose outright. That total might not be high enough tonight because the Celtics understand what is at stake. I believe it was Joe Mazzulla that understood the idea of the point differential and adding it up a year ago. So 15-point spread in favor of the C's. The Bucks will take on the Raptors. 7.5-point spread in favor of Milwaukee. No Damian Lillard, dealing with the effects of a concussion. Bad versus awful. Ooh, that's kind of tough to say. The Raptors are 2-9. The Bucks are 2-8. Who wins the NBA Cup opener for both teams?
Yeah, well, it better be Milwaukee. I don't know what else to tell them, although their odds kind of say that they should be. I mean, Toronto has been pesky. I don't know that I'm running to lay that number with Milwaukee, but I'm confident enough that they should be able to win this game here, though, Ben.
That's East Group B. The Magic host the Hornets tonight as an 8-point favorite. That's East Group A. The Pistons will also host the Heat tonight as a slight home underdog. That's also East Group B. The NBA Cup, man, it's a new thing. College basketball next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, hey, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Told me I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we would get
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Ferrall Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Not just a big night on the hardwood in the NBA and the start of the NBA Cup in 2024, but a big night in college basketball as well. The second full week of the season really gets underway tonight. And one of the first signs of a new year in college basketball, of course, in non-conference action, is the Champions Classic. Champions, Blue Bloods, staples of the sport from a program level. Tonight, in Atlanta, Georgia, we've got two great matchups to preview for you here. Joe Raineri and myself will look at this. Jon Rothstein joins the show up next to break it down even further. Let's start, Joe, with the first of two games tonight in the ATL. It is number one Kansas and Michigan State. Tom Izzo, of course, we know what he brings to this matchup. And, of course, Bill Self and the top-ranked Jayhawks, who did survive an incredible comeback attempt from North Carolina at home in the fog in a great top 10 tilt on Friday night. KU remains perfect at 2-0, 92-89. Michigan State has won both of its two games to start this year as well. Sparty booked as a 6.5-point underdog in Atlanta, total at 150 and a hook. How do you break down the matchup between the Jayhawks and the Spartans?
It feels, if we're being honest, it feels like kind of a low number for Kansas here, given the fact that I've talked to a number of guys that follow Michigan State basketball, and they are all on the consensus that this is one of the worst Michigan State teams that Tom Izzo has had in a very, very long time. They're unranked. They said none of the Michigan State starters right now would even sniff the floor for Kansas. Which has already faced number 9 North Carolina. In the meantime, you've got Michigan State, who's played who exactly? Nobody. They're only shooting about 25% from deep. We'll learn whether or not that's the true narrative here from Michigan State, but all indicators are this is not, Tom Izzo aside, this is not a good Michigan State team. And given what we've already seen from Kansas, it would be hard not to want to lay that number here tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Joe. There's no doubt that KU is more battle-tested. Michigan State, though, has looked good in its opening two games of this year. Against Monmouth and Niagara, I understand, but the Spartans have been booked as at least a 20-point favorite in both. They've covered the number both times. They've scored at least 81 points. They had 96 against Niagara late last week, I believe, on Thursday night. KU has scored at least 87 in both of its two games, the fifth most efficient offense in the country. That is Kansas. 150.5 also feels just a little bit light. So that is the first game of two tonight in Atlanta. It should be a great one. So, too, should be the nightcap. Number 6 Duke, number 19 Kentucky. Also a 6.5-point spread, but the total up by 10 points, 160.5. The Blue Devils, a 6.5-point favorite against Mark Pope's Wildcats in his first true test as the head man in Lexington. Of course, the game is played in Atlanta. The talented freshman for Duke against a reassembled roster for Kentucky. How do you see it tonight in the A?
Yeah, I see some points in this one here, Ben. I think a lot of star power here. You got to love Pope, who's never met a three that he doesn't like his kids to take here. And I do think, obviously, Duke has shown an ability to be able to go toe-to-toe with anybody. Duke has got not one but two unbelievable freshmen on this team that we're going to be talking about a lot, I think, throughout the season here. So while it might be a new look Kentucky team, I think points are coming. I think the total is 160.5, man. Yeah. I think both these teams can outshoot one another. I think this is going to be a fun one. Would not shock me if this thing lands closer to 170 than it does 160.
Duke has looked the part of that national championship favorite despite being ranked 7th in the AP top 25 in the preseason, as you saw, up by a spot. They have scored at least 96 in both of their games. They have covered the number as at least a 30-point favorite in both of their games. They have gone over because of it in both of their games. It's not just Cooper Flagg. It's Con Knippel, who is a great shooter as well, and a lot of other talent for this Duke team that fill out the roster, and some veterans like Tyrese Proctor, Mason Gillis, that add that experience to the young Duke superstar core. I'm big on Kentucky, mainly because I would get in heated arguments with Mark Zeno and Donnie Rightside trying to tell me that Kentucky was not a top 5 or top 10 job in college basketball. Idiots, the both of them. Of course, Kentucky is. And Mark Pope has brought his style of play from BYU. Again, not a three they don't like, and they will shoot it up. And it is carried over so far for the Cats, 100 plus in both games, albeit against Wright State and Bucknell, I understand. But over in both, they're only non-cover for the Cats, winning by 28 against Bucknell, missing out on the cover by a hook. But over in both, Joe, I agree with you. I think there's some points to come tonight in Atlanta, perhaps in both games, but certainly in the nightcap. A big statement for both. It's always a big statement for everybody in the Champions Classic. It's one of the great things about non-conference play in college basketball. These games do not hurt your resume. They only provide that positive, that benefit of having a quad one win when the season is through at the end of the year. Come Selection Sunday, should be a great night in the Champions Classic in Atlanta. Other notable Tuesday games outside of Atlanta. Baylor got beat big in its opening game of the year against Gonzaga 8 days ago. Back at home, only a 15.5-point favorite against Sam Houston State in Waco. Ole Miss, 17.5-point favorite against South Alabama. Villanova, in a Big Five battle, is just a 2.5-point favorite against St. Joe's. That should show you how bad things are for Kyle Neptune and the Cats. Temple, in another Big Five matchup, takes on Drexel. UCF, who pulled off the stunner on opening night against Texas A&M, 5.5-point favorite against the former Dusty May-led team of FAU. Oh, God, that bottom game gives me chills just reading it. My Syracuse Orange, 11.5-point favorite against the toothpaste college, that being Colgate. Joe, Colgate is a great team. The Red Raiders shoot the crap out of the basketball. They are always a tournament contender because of that out of the Patriot League. Here's why that game scares the crap, the living daylights out of me. It had been a very long time, up until 3 seasons ago now, that Syracuse had been beaten by its upstate rival in central New York, Colgate. In fact, it had been since 1961-62 that Colgate had gotten the better of Syracuse. And then they beat the Orange in 2021-22. They beat the Orange again in 2022-23. And last year, just a 4-point game for SU to survive. Listen, man, I hate it. I'm probably not even going to watch it. I don't want to see it. Syracuse, 11.5-point favorite against Colgate.
I don't know about that. Those two teams, Ben, Colgate is not going to be overly impressed or intimidated by any stretch of the imagination taking on Q's here. It is kind of their big game of the year. They always like to make a statement. I wouldn't be laying 11.5 with Syracuse. I also wouldn't be laying 15.5 with Baylor. I like Sam Houston State to take down a Conference USA title this year. This is an undervalued team with a ton of experience here. That is a big number, 15.5, to be laying with a team that can absolutely shoot. Wouldn't shock me if Sam Houston State keeps that thing closer.
And I will just say this, Colgate did lose to Drexel by 17 points on Saturday, so maybe not the Colgate team that we have known in the Patriot League. Still a very, very scary game. Joe Raineri, we thank you for your time on this Tuesday on the early line. We'll spin it with Jon Rothstein on the other side for some more college basketball previews, and then I'll give the people the look at the college football playoff rankings revealed and sandwiched in between the Champions Classic. Raineri, I'll talk to you Friday. Of course, the guy will be back on the SportsGrid Network all across the place all week long.
Yeah. In about 20 minutes, man. In about 20 minutes.
It was wild. Jon Rothstein up next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
This might only be November, but on this second Tuesday of the month, it's a huge night in college basketball. One of the early signs that college hoops is back. The Champions Classic and a matchup of four Blue Bloods tonight in Atlanta, Georgia. So to set the stage for that, the rest of the slate on this Tuesday into the second full week of this 2024-25 campaign, who better to join us than Jon Rothstein of CBS Sports, joining us here on the Early Line on behalf of the FanDuel Sportsbook. John, always a pleasure, my man. How excited are you for tonight's two games of the Champions Classic in Atlanta?
Really excited because three of the four teams in this event, Michigan State, Kentucky, and Duke, have yet to play games this season against power conference opponents. And, Ben, everybody loves to jump to conclusions over statistics that are accumulated in by-game settings. I am one who feels like every couple of days you need to offer a PSA that you need to take all stats accumulated in bye games with a grain of salt unless they're exceptionally staggering. So we'll find out a lot more about the Spartans, the Blue Devils, and the Wildcats after tonight.
And, John, I think that's a great point because not only do we break down the game, how close it's going to be, the key players that will impact the matchups that will dictate the outcome, but what we're going to learn from these teams on display tonight in Atlanta. It's Bill Self and Tom Izzo. It's number one, Kansas and Michigan State. KU, the only team, John, that you mentioned of the four in the Champions Classic that has played power conference competition. What a game it was, the top 10 tilt on Friday night in Lawrence as KU held off the second half charge from North Carolina to win 92-89 in a high-scoring affair. So perhaps earlier on, the Jayhawks battle tested and the number one team in the land, a 6.5-point favorite against Sparty tonight. Just how competitive, John, do you expect the opener in Atlanta to look?
I consider Kansas to be a heavy favorite in this game simply because I am not sure if Michigan State will be able to match up inside with Hunter Dickinson. I talked to Tom Izzo about this yesterday. There's still a lot of question marks with this Michigan State team. Jaden Akins is obviously somebody you can look to as a go-to guy. But after that, there's a lot of questions with Michigan State. Izzo knows that the jumps of sophomores Jeremy Fears, Cone Carr, and Xavier Booker is exceptionally important for this Michigan State team. He also knows that Michigan State at some point is going to have to identify a secondary scorer behind Jaden Akins? Will it be Jackson Kohler? Will it be somebody like Xavier Booker? Will it be Frankie Fiddler, the transfer from Omaha? There's still a lot of questions for the team from East Lansing, but I do want to point out Tom Izzo believes that Jeremy Fears, the point guard who redshirted last season, can eventually have a 4-year impact like a Mateen Cleaves, a Kalen Lucas, a Cassius Winston. And here is a staggering thing that stood out from Michigan State's first 2 games. During that span, Ben, Fears' assist-to-turnover ratio is 16-3. That's something I can read into.
Yeah, absolutely so. And he is going to be the orchestrator of the offense in East Lansing. John, to your point, hasn't been great competition yet for MSU, just Monmouth and Niagara, but booked as a 20-point favorite at least in both. The Spartans have covered both of those numbers. Now let's get on to the marquee matchup in the nightcap in the A. It's Duke and Kentucky. A first time to really introduce himself to the nation as the Cats head coach. That is Mark Pope. And of course, for Jon Scheyer and the Blue Devils, it is the full debut of this incredibly talented young freshman class. John, let's start with Duke. What do you think the Blue Devils will show tonight in Atlanta, booked as a 6.5-point favorite against the Wildcats?
Positional size and the ability, obviously, to take away maybe some of that free-flowing offense that Mark Pope said he's going to unveil this season. Look, I spent some time in the Triangle during the preseason, and the biggest thing that really had Jon Scheyer excited about this Duke team, in addition to his talented freshman class, was the positional size that Duke had. Duke has everybody on its roster, Ben, standing 6'4" or taller. This has a chance unequivocally to be the best defensive team that Jon Scheyer has had in 3 years at Duke, and that's better than the team 2 years ago that had Derek Lively in the pivot. I think another thing you need to look at, too, is Duke went out and added experience in the transfer portal with, obviously, Sion James, Malik Brown, and also Mason Gillis, who had a big role in that Purdue team last year that went to the national championship game. Those 3 players will be paramount tonight in defending a Kentucky team, again, that is really shooting the ball at a high level through 2 games against opponents, though, who were played in bye games.
Yeah, Duke has looked the part. They've been booked as at least a 30-point favorite in their first 2 games against Maine and Army, easily covering the numbers. Quickly on the Cats, John, you mentioned the offense for Mark Pope. Kentucky has scored at least 100 in its first 2 games of the year. What will the nation know about Big Blue Nation following tonight's game in Atlanta?
It's going to be a completely different style of basketball for people that follow Kentucky versus what we saw under John Calipari and even prior to that. Mark Pope is an innovative offensive coach who doesn't want the ball to stick. He wants the ball to move. He wants, obviously, things to be free-flowing offensively. It's going to be fascinating to see just how unselfish Kentucky can be and how players who were recruited out of the transfer portal who played at a lower level now step up a weight class. Lamont Butler was a terrific player at San Diego State. He is now going from the Mountain West to the Champions Classic. Kobe Brea was arguably the best shooter in college basketball last year at Dayton. 100 made threes, 49.8% from three-point range. He is going from the Atlantic 10 to the Champions Classic. Amari Williams from Drexel was going from the CAA to the Champions Classic. Ben, I quote Tim Robbins in The Shawshank Redemption: get busy living or get busy dying.
Andy Dufresne, don't tell no lies. As you'll see, John, as you look at the national championship odds, Duke remains the favorite at a short price at plus 950, but plenty of the teams tonight in Atlanta will be on display. Quickly, John, 30 seconds left. The other games on this Tuesday, which one catches your eye?
Villanova St. Joe's, 5 o'clock Eastern, a standalone game on a Tuesday afternoon. This was circled when the schedule came out because it was a Big Five rivalry game. It is now in bold print because these two bitter rivals will try and avoid a second loss in the first 9 days of the season. Ben, I've said it before. I'll say it again. This is only November.
Yes, it certainly is. And that is Jon Rothstein. We appreciate the time. More of the early line next.
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, hey, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid, we round out this Tuesday because for the second consecutive Tuesday, it's another rankings reveal from the mind of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Entering week number 12, the third to final Saturday of this regular season in CFB, we will have the second iteration of the College Football Playoff rankings. Again, I am of the belief that each and every week should matter if this is the format that they choose, especially now in the 12-team era, when it's not just like, hey, these teams are like 21 and 17, and then we got the top four and the two teams on the outside. This is incredibly impactful because we will see, based on the results of a weekend in actual games, how far a team might drop. Looking at you, Miami and Georgia, and how far a team might be on the rise, and what is the ground that is then needed to be made up for teams to earn a spot, an at-large berth, what the bracket might look like based on seeding of conference champs that earn that automatic berth, and thus also what happens for teams on how far they fall and what they're trying to hold on to. So we have the rankings, of course, from last week. We do things through the odds here based on what we saw week number 11 in the second Saturday in November. Here are the odds for the college football playoff. Here is how the bracket would look for the college football playoff based solely on those college football playoff prices and a few head-to-head tiebreakers that I will break down as we get past number 8. Oregon has the best number of any team in the country, minus 100,000 to reach the college football playoff, and the Ducks remain the favorites to win the Big Ten. However, Ohio State not all that far behind. But because the Ducks at this moment have the head-to-head tiebreaker advantage in front of the Buckeyes, Oregon slotted into the number 1 seed. Texas now has life once again in the SEC as Georgia suffers its second conference loss. And despite the fact UGA has the head-to-head against UT, the Longhorns only have that one conference loss. Minus 1,700 for Texas, the best number of any SEC team to reach the college football playoff. Here's where it gets fun. Boise State would be the third highest ranked or third most likely college football playoff team of our conference title winners around the country because at minus 300, the Broncos' price to reach the CFP is better than that of Miami. still the favorites in the ACC, holding on in front of SMU. The Mustangs do not have a loss, though, in conference play. In Boise State CFP price, better than any team out of the Big 12. So Boise State would not only host a college football playoff, or not just host, but not only earn a spot in the college football playoff, an opening round bye. Now let's get to the at-large bids. Ohio State at minus 5,000. Second best price to reach the CFP would be in that coveted 5 spot, an at-large berth, but a very desirable number. Penn State at minus 850. Listen, the Nittany Lions lost in their only game as an underdog. Probably not going to matter. Penn State going to be a college football playoff team. Responded hammering Washington at home in Happy Valley. Despite its second loss of the year, in the first for UGA since the middle portion of 2020 against a non-Alabama football program, Georgia's still minus 500 to reach the CFP. To me, I don't know if I agree with the number being that strong, although the path, of course, certainly there for the Bulldogs. Indiana, minus 500 in that 8th spot in terms of the college football playoff odds. And here's where it gets tricky. So you saw Notre Dame at minus 350. There are 4 teams right now with a minus 350 price on the FanDuel Sportsbook to reach the college football playoff, including Tennessee, Alabama, and Ole Miss. The reason we put Notre Dame in the 9th spot is because the Irish and the Volunteers have only 1 loss. So Notre Dame in front of Tennessee in that 9-10 distinction because Notre Dame has the better national championship number. Tennessee elevated in front of Alabama, 1 loss and the direct head-to-head. So the Vols in the 10th spot. Alabama would be the 11th spot because Alabama and Ole Miss both have 2 conference losses at this moment. They do not play each other this year, but Alabama by $1 at plus 850 has a better national championship price than that of Ole Miss. But Ole Miss and Alabama both have a better national championship number than Tennessee and Notre Dame, but that's how we decided to do our rankings. BYU would be the 5th highest ranked conference champion, or most likely based on the CFP odds. Still the favorites in the Big 12, but look at Colorado. Less than a $0.50 behind the Cougs in the Big 12 championship race, 15 cents in terms of the CFP odds. Miami has the better CFP price and is still the ACC favorite, but SMU unbeaten in ACC play. That does it for a Tuesday. The early line returns tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His 3rd 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets and when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on